Vice President Mrs. Meisner. Trustee Mr. Starr. Trustee Ms. Sternan.
Yes, coffee.
Trustee Mrs. Kasperzak. Here. Trustee Mr. Calabrese.
Here.
Trustee Mrs. Cook.
Here.
Please turn off all cell phones during the board meeting. There are no additions to the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of December 13th, 2016?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Sternan, seconded by Mr. Calabrese, that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the above minutes items 2.1 as presented. Any revisions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Are there any additions or deletions to the old business list?
It's just a question. The water, we tested the water testing and some of the levels were found to be too high and they were gonna replace
They were
the,
remediated, and then we're waiting for the middle high school results.
okay, we've never gotten those yet.
We got the outside spigots, but we don't have the inside yet. So once we
Okay.
do, we're gonna post it to the website. Everything will be posted to the
But
website.
the elementary's been remediated.
Yes.
So the issue is over. Okay, thank you.
We have a bill, to schedule the building tours. We've taken those, except for the one at BOCES. Do we still want to try and get into BOCES?
Yeah, they're more than welcome to pay to do that, right at the Town Center.
That would be during the day, right? Doesn't have to be morning.
I can't remember the time, I think they said after noon. I think like 12:30 to see that group of kids.
Do you want me to set that up? BOCES? I know a lot of
So would
you
you look
work.
for different days or?
We just set it up for the day and, yeah.
The day of the board meeting, we're talking about the meeting, you know, we just schedule other things on those days.
Tuesday. And then whoever. All right. Do you schedule, like, how does that, do that, or? Okay.
That's what I'm looking for.
All right, then we'll leave that on until we get the BOCES.
And you want it on a Tuesday, board meeting day.
Sure.
So February 14th is the next one with that.
Oh, good, there'll probably be
For
some
Valentine's
chocolate or
Day,
something.
is there, would that prohibit anyone from coming during the day if it's on Valentine's Day? Okay.
The culinary will probably give us cookies or something.
That's right. Probably-
Okay.
We can probably remove the request for the policy committee, because that should try to create it.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask about, Mrs. Kasperzak's revisit the Chromebook usage. Are you still planning on doing the one-on-one next year, or are you changing carts?
Well, I can give you an update as to the question that was asked at the last board meeting about the usage of Chromebooks. So Mr. Sullivan and myself met with the 7th grade team in regards to what are they using their Chromebooks for. And I'm just going to give you some ideas of what they told us. Our textbook is online. They use digital notebooks, Google Docs, Research, Google Slideshow, Easy Bib. They use it during the Avid period. One of the things that we found out why some of the students might not have homework at night is because during Avid, for the first 20 minutes, they actually can work on some of their homework that's been assigned. Math does stuff with paper and pencil, but she has lots of videos online. What they felt were some of the teachers had been videotaping themselves, having the information in the Google Docs, where the students could then go home and actually, if they had difficulty, they can turn on their Chromebooks and look at the lessons again that were being taught. They're using it for Quizlet, which is a thing that they're using for studying. So vocabulary words and different things are being used in Quizlet. Assignments are on Google Classroom, but sometimes they have to do them on paper and pencil. So they would log on to the computer to get their assignments, but they're still, some of them are still paper and pencil. The students can share their documents with other students and collaborate and work on them. Each of the teachers did talk about, what they believe homework is, what they were using the Chromebooks for at home. We did talk about in 7th grade, iReady is going to be done, a lesson that needs to be completed in ELA and math, and we're hoping that the students, well, it's going to be a requirement that they're doing them at night. Right now, we're starting our benchmark assessment for them, so they had it the first 2 weeks, and then they'll do the benchmark assessment, and that's differentiated based on how they do on their benchmark assessment. We still are looking at the students taking them home in the middle school based on some of the feedback from some of the teachers. I do also know that one of the teachers said all their homework is always posted on the webpage, and the students have access to their science textbook through the Chromebook because they're online. So that was one of the things that they did. And we did find out that there are only a few students that do not have internet access at home. I think somebody had asked that question, like, what about students that do not have internet access at home? And according to what Mr. Sellen showed me, we have about 5 students in the 7th grade that did not have internet access at home.
I'd still like to keep it on there because even since the last meeting, my daughter said she hasn't used it for any of them.
And just to see, okay.
Yeah.
I can follow up with 6th and 8th grade too, and find more information what they're doing.
Yeah, just
Okay.
so it's, updated on it. since
Okay.
I'm not seeing that much.
We also need to discuss having a special meeting. Is everybody available next Tuesday at 5 o'clock? For most of us, I think, for a meeting with Dr. Fusco. Roses?
17th,
The 17th?
under 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Good.
Yes, I think we're good. I will let Diane know.
Will it be here or downstairs?
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, here's your name. Okay, so we're going to have a special meeting next week to hear from Dr. Fusco, and then we're potentially will vote on who we're going to choose. There were no comments or questions at the last.
We had a meeting here, there was a question.
Oh, here, I'm sorry.
Okay. Conference room.
Should have here,
Here.
public meeting. In case somebody comes.
Yeah, I mean, we have had some meetings, but it is small, out in front of the conference room. We can have it here, no problem.
All right, so 5 o'clock here this week. There were no questions or comments at the last meeting requiring a response. We will follow the guidelines regarding public comments as outlined on the agenda. If there is anyone wishing to speak at this time, please come forward to the microphone.
My name is Jill. Came up just kind of, I just need your name and your address. Sure. Jill Grabsky, 10 Milk Street. Do you need that? No, that would be okay. Thank you. So it came up on Facebook. We were kind of going back and forth on a community post about a training that I took called the Ellis Safety Training. I think we spoke about this. I know I spoke to Mrs. Pinaro as well. Just one of the things that I was hoping that we could consider for teachers in the community. So just to share a little bit, the Ellis Safety Trainer training, it stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And really what it does is it looks at all the past incidents in our whole country. And it really gives a proactive approach to how we deal with those situations. Already it's being used in 3,700 school districts, also government agencies, police forces, and healthcare facilities. So I just wanted to bring it up here. I know the airport shooting is fresh in everybody's mind right now. It's unfortunately a reality that we're all dealing with. And as a parent, I hear about these lockdown drills that my son does. But after going through that training, I was really concerned at how those lockdown drills are run. And I think that they're okay in a good situation. So what they're doing is they're locking the doors, turning off the lights, all the kids are in the corner quiet, which is wonderful if you know that there's somebody in the building. but I think past incidents have showed us that there's not always time to announce it, and that it can happen on the playground, on a field trip. So I know when I took the training personally, I just left feeling very, very empowered that I believe I would know some things that I could do to protect myself, to protect my children. And I just think it would be great if our teachers could also have some more of that empowerment for those situations that we can't go over during every single drill.
I'll give you a call, and then maybe we can, like, is there a representative that can come to a safety meeting for us?
My trainer when I took the class, personally offered to speak to whoever
Very good.
and help out,
Okay.
so I can invite him.
So I'll call you.
Sure.
And then I'll tell you I'll let you know when the next safety meeting is.
Okay.
That person can come.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Dr. Newman and staff will provide us with updates at this time.
So right now, we're going to have Dr. Vincent Coppola come up. He's from the Western New York Education Service Council, and he's going to present regarding the superintendent search for my replacement. Yeah.
Well, it won't be me.
I believe all the board members have a packet of information that Dr. Coppola provided.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
It's miserable out there, I just want you to know that. I know you have a regular board meeting tonight, so I'm going to try to be as brief as I possibly can. You've already had the materials in front of you, and I hope that giving those to you ahead of time was helpful, so that you weren't pouring through the paper as we were talking for the first night. I do want to talk to you also tonight before we leave about a closed search versus an open search. I want to try to explain the difference between the two. I want you to know that I've done about 80 superintendent searches in the past 19 years. You read my bio and you know that I'm a retired superintendent from the Corning City School District. But prior to going to Corning, I spent 26 and a half years in West Seneca, and I was the superintendent of West Seneca before I left to go to Corning, where I finished my career. And I'm so glad I wasn't in West Seneca when they had the snowstorm. My heart went out to a good friend of mine, Dr. Crawford, who I hired as an elementary principal when I was the superintendent of West Seneca. I hired him as an elementary principal, and then when he was looking for his first superintendency, I was doing a search in Dryden, outside of Cortland. And Mark, that was his first superintendency before he went to Hamburg and then finishing up in West Seneca. I want you to know that you're in charge of the search if I'm selected. And I hope you like me well enough because I can help you cancel a meeting with Lynn Fusco next week, which will give you a night off that appeals to you. Lynn is a friend of mine, and all of the BOCES superintendents that I know throughout New York State are colleagues and friends, and she's a very fine lady and a very fine person. I would like to, if you don't mind, quickly take you through, not the proposal, because if you have questions on the proposal, I'm ready to answer those kinds of questions that you might have. But I'd like to have you take a look at those searches that we did in the past 3 years. And we've got 2 that are in progress right now. A colleague of mine, Bob Chrisman, who we work together at the council, which is housed at the University of Buffalo. Bob is doing the city of Albany right now. He's just in the middle of that. I'm doing Watkins Glen, which is halfway between Syracuse and Rochester. That is being advertised as we speak, and we should probably be making an announcement not until around March 29th, March 30th, as to who the new superintendent is going to be in Watkins Glen. Mr. Phillips has been there for 11 years. I think an interesting statistic that I can give you is that the average tenure for a superintendent in the state of New York is usually between 4.5 and 5 years for anyone staying in a district for that length of time. If you were to take a look at the 80 searches that I've done, and I've done the statistics on this, that out of that average of 80, I would say it's at least 7.5 years that a superintendent has stayed in a district for the searches that I've done on the average, 7.5, which is above the average for New York State. If you take a look at locally, what I've done in the past year or so, 2 years, I've done Amherst Central, and I've also done Hamburg. Besides being the superintendent of those 2 districts that I mentioned, West Seneca and Corning, I also, over a period of time, have done 4 interims. I did an interim superintendency in Grand Island years ago, also twice in Frontier Central, and most recently in Hamburg while I was doing the search in Hamburg, and Hamburg was going through, as you know, lots of issues, lots of problems, and the board had asked me if I would take on the interim superintendency to help them out. I certainly was reluctant to do it, but I wanted to do it in the final analysis because it is my home district. Even though I live in the town of Orchard Park, Hamburg is the district where my 2 children graduated from school. So those are two districts, Amherst and Hamburg, that you would quickly recognize. You have a brochure in there about Fulton, which is a small city school district, bigger than Tonawanda. It's about 3,500 kids, and I finished that about a year ago. A district that Bob Chrisman and I just finished up this past July was the Rochester City School District. We normally have not done large city school districts across the state, but this is one that invited us to apply, and we were successful in placing a candidate there. I also want to mention to you that in the past 2 years, Bob and I have been down working for the New York City Department of Education with Chancellor Farina. In New York City, they have 42 separate superintendent positions. 32 are for K through 8 schools, and 10 of them are for 9 through 12. When a new mayor gets elected in New York City, and he oversees the school districts in New York, all of the superintendents have to submit their letter of resignation within 10 days. They can reapply for the job, and many of them do, but it's up to the chancellor to make a decision as to who she wants to keep and who are the new superintendents. They kept it local inside, and they had 75 individuals who applied for the job. They sent all their paperwork up to us at the university. We developed a rubric scoring system for their paperwork. We developed a rubric scoring system for the interview. And there were 3 of us that were down there, and we interviewed 75 people over 3 days and made the recommendations to the chancellor who we would recommend to retain and who we would recommend as new superintendents. We don't make the call, she does, just as you're going to make the decision as to who the next superintendent is going to be. This past year, we went down to New York again, and the chancellor asked us to interview all the deputy superintendents in the district, and there's one for every school district, 42 of them, and also to make recommendations to her as to who might be capable of taking the next step up. So I wanted to quickly share that with you. I also want to mention to commend your present superintendent, Dr. Newton. I've known Jim for a very long time, and he's done a lot of heavy lifting, a real dedicated, committed person to the city of Tonawanda, because he was a middle school principal, a high school principal, as well as your superintendent for the past 5 years. Everybody that knows Jim knows that he's a caring person, he's a gentleman, and a good educator, and I know he's going to be very hard to replace. If you would go to the next sheet, which is the preferred characteristics for superintendent candidates, I would ask that if you decide to select me to do your search, that all the board members would complete this characteristics profile. And if you have me meet with various focus groups in the district, which would include parents, students, teachers, administrators, support staff, and people from the community, usually about 10 people in each group. And at the very first meeting that we would have, we would talk about how those people would be selected. All of those focus group members would complete this profile. And then I would come back after scoring them, giving you a grid to show you how the members of the board rank the top 10 versus how the teachers rank the top 10 versus how the students rank the top 10 and so on, so that you can get an idea, are all the school community groups and the board coalescing around a certain number of these particular characteristics out of the 20. And we've changed and updated this from year to year. If you look at the next form that we have in there that deals with the 3 questions, we're going to ask the board and all of the focus group members that you have me meet with, because you make the determination as to who I meet with. We're going to ask them what are the positive things about the Tonawanda City School District and the community that would attract someone to want to come here and be your next superintendent. Then, what are the issues and concerns that the next superintendent should be aware of so they can enter the district hitting the ground running? And then the third question, what are the personal and professional characteristics that you're looking for in the next superintendent? We would collate all this information and give it back to you in a full report to show you how all the teachers, not with any names, no names, just the group teachers, the category of teachers, how they responded, how the board responded, and how all the other focus groups responded in a full report. Because we're only talking about 10 people in each of these 6 or 7 groups, I'm also suggesting that you may want to do a survey online. I gave you an example of this. In Watkins Glen, we probably had about 120 people, small district of about 1,000 students who got online to respond to the survey. So this means any staff members, any members of your community, any students, anybody that hasn't participated in the focus group will have an opportunity to give the board some feedback. And again, we would give you a very comprehensive report on that. The last thing, before I talk to you about an open and closed search, is I've given you a suggested timetable for the search. This is nothing more than a suggestion. It's up to you to decide about these dates and times. It can be tweaked to serve your own personal calendars and your own personal needs. But we're talking about getting going right away. I'm urging you, regardless of who you select to do your search, to get started as soon as possible. If Dr. Newton is leaving at the end of June, so you would like to have a new superintendent in place as of July 1, it takes about 4.5 months to be able to do all the things that we have to do to complete a successful search. We don't want to put it on the fast track and rush it, but we don't want to delay it either. You're going to have Kenton that's going to be looking for a superintendent. You're going to have West Seneca that's looking for a superintendent. Tonawanda is looking, the city of Tonawanda, for a superintendent. And I anticipate, and I can't say where, but I anticipate another opening coming up in the Western New York area. So there are a lot of people looking for school superintendents, and I can tell you from the 19 years that I've been involved in doing these searches, we used to get 50 to 75 candidates as late as 10 years ago, and probably the average now could go anywhere from 15 to 25. For those people who apply for a BOCES job, there's only 37 BOCES superintendents in the state of New York. They generally don't get more than 10 applicants for the BOCES job. So it's a scramble to find the best candidates that you can get. And I do want you to know that we're aggressive. We cannot wait for the applications to come in, because if you sit back and just wait, you're going to get 10 or 11 or 12 applicants. We have to get on the phone, we have to contact people and call people and determine who might be interested in another opportunity here in the city of Tonawanda. This is a very manageable school district, a very tight community, a community that works together, a community that values their school system, and I think this is an excellent place for anybody who would want to be a school superintendent. But at the same time, it takes work to entice people and encourage them to leave wherever they're working to want to come here. So we have to get on the phone and call people. So if you take a look at the schedule, we're talking, when we get down to April 12th, the deadline for applications would be April 3rd. I would be reviewing the applications as they come in. I make a lot of telephone calls. I interview all of the candidates that are going to be applying for the job face-to-face whenever possible, and that is most of the time. I will send up to you ahead of time in a sealed envelope probably 8 to 10 of the best candidates that apply for the job, people that I think would be a good fit for the district. Does that mean you're not going to see the entire list? You will see the entire list. You're entitled to it. You're the Board of Education that's going to hire the next superintendent. I have never, as a superintendent search consultant, ever hired the superintendent. It's always the Board of Education. So you will get 8 to 10 of those complete files, their resume, their letters of reference, all of the information that they provide for us. We will send it up to you so that you can look at it before I would come up on April 26th or April 12th to review those particular candidates. We've scheduled 6 candidates for you to interview on May 1st and 2nd, and then usually the board reduces it down to 3 finalists, and that would be May 8th, 10th, and 11th. There is an optional visit for the board to go and visit the district of the finalists, and I would urge you to do that. I think it's important. They're going to come, you're going to interview them twice, you're going to hear my recommendations, but I think you owe it to yourselves and you owe it to this community to go and visit the district where that candidate is coming from and meet with whoever you want. Meet with the members of the board, meet with the administrative staff, meet with the PTA, you want to meet with the mayor, you want to meet with the chief of police in that community where that candidate is coming from. I would urge you to leave no stone unturned until you're absolutely sure you've got the right person that you want. And then, of course, from there, you go into negotiating the contract. So I think if you get started next week, I think we can meet the deadline of July 1st, because it takes a couple of months to advertise the job and get the word out there. The last thing I'll share with you, and I will then stop to give you a chance to ask me some questions, is what's the difference between an open search and a closed search? An open search involves not only the Board of Education interviewing the final candidates, the final 6, and then down to the final 3, the board interviews twice, but it also means that you may want to have a focus group involved in interviewing the final 3 candidates. In my particular process, what we do with those 7 groups that I would meet with, 10 in each group, is encourage them to select 2 people from each of those focus groups who would serve on a interview team. So that would be 2 teachers, 2 administrators, 2 students, 2 parents, approximately 12 to 14 people on that team. Now, another way you can do it, and I'm sure when you talk to Dr. Fusco next week, all the BOCES superintendents do it a little differently. They will have a group of teachers interview separately, a group of parents interview separately, a group of community members interviewing separately, so that the candidate is probably going to go through about 6 or 7 groups for 45 minutes to an hour. I used to do that in the very beginning, and probably the last 10 years I gave up on that practice because I think it's important for all of the school community groups to be thinking and working together. So if you have the parents and the teachers and the administrators all on that same team, you're getting them, hopefully, to be thinking about what's best for the district and not just for their own particular needs for their particular group. That's the reason why I suggest that one group. However, you're going to make the decision as to whether or not you're okay with that. And usually with an open search, you will have those candidates come in for a full day and they will tour all of the school districts. So it's open. And the newspapers are going to find out who your final 3 candidates are. And I can tell you, in my own personal experience, what's happened in the past several years, and how difficult it is to entice and recruit people to take this top job. And this is why in some searches, like in Amherst, where I did that recently, we had what we call the closed search. And we also did it in the city of Rochester. There are candidates that have called me right now in Watkins Glen and said to me, how soon would my name, if I'm in the final 3, how soon will it be announced in the newspaper? I haven't told anybody in my district that I'm looking for a job. And if I don't get the job, and people know that I applied, am I going to lose political capital back home? In some cases, they do. They do. Especially if they're a top-notch administrator or the superintendent, and people are saying, well, looks like they want to leave us. They don't want to stay. So they got rejected on this job. Where's the next job they're going to apply to? So in a closed search, my experience has been you will get more candidates than you will on an open search. However, that's your call. That's not a decision you have to make tonight. It's a decision you certainly have to make on the first meeting that you would have with a consultant. And I'm willing, I've worked in both, and I'm willing to help you with either search that you want to do. You know the culture of your community better than I do, and you know how open and transparent you've been. And if you think you want participation from a focus group to interview, you're welcome to do that. But I do want you to know that I explained to the focus group that you are advisory. You're not making the final decision. That final decision is with the Board of Education. Because what happens is the focus group will come in and they'll see candidate A and say, boy, we really like candidate A, and your mailbox is going to be filled with emails from those particular focus group members urging you to go with candidate A. But you get the benefit of doing 2 interviews. You get all the background checks, all the other personal information. The focus groups don't get that. So that's why they have to be advisory. They're certainly an important part of the process if you choose that, and you certainly want to pay attention to how they view those candidates. So, that's it. I only answer easy questions from here on in, so.
Question? How much do you charge for yourself?
It's in the proposal, and it's $15,000. That money goes to the Western New York Educational Service Council, and the Service Council takes a percentage of that amount, and the rest goes to the consultant. Included in that is any of my personal expenses in that $15,000. That's the common denominator for most consultants in the state of New York. There's some that charge more than that. Of course, you know that BOCES superintendents do not charge, though when Mr. Ogilvy was the BOCES superintendent before Lynn, he decided that the BOCES would charge $6,000 or $6,500 to do a search, but I'm not so sure that Lynn is doing it. And Danielle, is that Danielle? I want to point out, and I hope I'm being professional about this, because all the BOCES superintendents are colleagues and friends of mine. To the best of my knowledge, Dr. Fusco has done one search, and that is Grand Island. I've done 80 searches, and I know she's very capable. She's a former superintendent, but if I'm going to go for hip surgery, I'm going to ask the doctor, how many hips have you replaced? And if you replaced 80 versus one, I think I'm going to go with the one that's done 80. And I know that sounds very self-serving to me, but that's a fact. Number two, I do searches across the state of New York. So I get to know all of the candidates from one end of the state to the other. The only searches that a BOCES superintendent can do are within their BOCES, within those 19 schools. And then some of those schools have hired me, and some of them would go with the BOCES superintendent. Lynn is certainly going to do many more searches during their time in BOCES, but up to now, they're doing one. And I also, again, mentioned to you that the BOCES superintendent has a full-time job. That's their job. They're full-time as a BOCES superintendent. I'm full-time as a search consultant. I'm going to spend all of my time working with you and trying to recruit the best candidates. I'm not going to be distracted by having a full-time job and having the search for Tonawanda be kind of an add-on. So those are some of the differences that exist between myself and if you decide that you want to hire a BOCES superintendent. So can we cancel her meeting next week? She's a terrific person. I want you to know that. She's absolutely an outstanding individual. The cost that I wanted to mention to you, Danielle, the only additional cost is listed in your proposal. You pay for the advertising, and I know your business official down there is adding all this up with a pencil too. Don't think she's asleep. She's on the ball down there. It's about $250 for advertising in the New York State Council of School Superintendents for 45 days. It's $300 to do a quarter page in the New York State School Boards Association. The other one is for NISCUS, for the school superintendents. You can also advertise in SANES, which covers all the administrators across the district. You can advertise in AASA that goes across the country. That's a little over $500. Education Week, that publication is probably $1,500. I would tell you that's a waste of your money. I would try to encourage you probably to limit your advertisement to the New York State Council of School Superintendents for $250 and the New York State School Board for $300. Many of the candidates that work in other states are going to get on the NISCUS website or the New York State School Board's website. So why waste your money putting it in Education Week or any of the other ones that I mentioned?
Dr. Capola, you provided us with a business card. I can't think of anything right now, but could I contact you if I have a question?
Absolutely. I would hope that you would, any member of the board, please contact me. I will get back to you probably within the hour. Okay? I don't think I'll have to use much gas going home. That wind will carry me right home. Am I good, Danielle?
I think so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our principal reports. Ms. Lyons?
Mr. Stalin just told me I have a minute and a half, so I gotta get moving here. No, I'm good. I don't really have a lot. A couple of teachers wanted me to show a couple video clips today, so. I did hand out a little handout in front of your nameplates when there was the break in between. So on the front are some things I didn't have pictures of. We did celebrate one of our students was the Exchange Club Youth of the Month for December, Rachel Ledoux. We have chosen our 20 Tonawanda Quality students. They've been notified they're turning in their forms. And our committee will be looking for sponsors. We're meeting again February 10th. Usually the board and some unions sponsor a student or two. And $100. Yep. And it includes the dinner for the student, their parents or two guests, and yourself. So usually at a table there'll be the student, two guests, and the sponsor along with another set. So there's 8 people at a table. And Danielle's son was chosen as a quality student, so he will be there too. 10th graders visited BOCES. They went to both Kenton for the morning and Harkness on 2 different days to visit if they are interested in attending next year. They get to visit the different programs at those sites. We had suicide awareness sessions done for all 9th graders and 11th graders. The counselors, social workers, and our school psychologists went into classrooms, English classes, and did a suicide awareness session. We've been doing lots of home visits to students. This last Tuesday, last Wednesday the 4th, we had 5 past graduates from last year come in, and they had a panel in the auditorium for the seniors. And I moderated it, and we just went through questions that relates to, what I wish I knew I graduated before I graduated from high school. So we talked about what they wish they knew before they graduated, and also just what they chose to do with their life and where they are now. We have kids escaping drugs coming in and presenting to all of our students during their phys ed class in March, the 20th and 21st. Kids Escaping Drugs is a peer awareness outreach program. Clients who are in their later phases of treatment visit schools and speak to their peers face-to-face about decisions that they made and consequences of those decisions when it comes to substance abuse. We don't have this every year. We've had it in the past, and we decided to bring it back this year. We have our annual Strikeout Hunger Bowling Tournament on Martin Luther King Day this coming Monday in the afternoon at the Bowling Center. Everybody who bowls has to bring at least 5 perishable food items, which we donate to the food bank. We have a parent scheduling course selection informational meeting on Thursday, January 26th. This year, in the past, it's been for parents of students going from 8th grade into 9th grade. We're opening it up for parents of 8th through 11th graders. A lot of parents have questions, not necessarily their child going into 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. Are they on track to graduate? What do they need? What's the next in the sequence? So we're going to invite all parents to that informational night, and all the parents who come will receive a copy of the course selection guide, which is being approved tonight. And if parents don't come, we'll have enough copies for them to, we can send them home with the child. Our National Honor Society and Leadership class are teaming up to raise money for a 3-year-old boy named Evan who has many medical complications. They're going to be running a Hats On. It's $1 to wear a hat at school every Friday from next Friday till the end of February. All of our 10th grade students took the ASVAB on December 1st, and they just had their readouts yesterday during English class. So students now have access to the program, and that can help them explore careers and connect those careers with their abilities and interests. They had a nice little readout. They had 45 minutes with the woman from ASVAB to explain how to read out, and they have access to the website to explore different careers. Our school counselors have been working on career exploration with the 9th and 11th graders through a program we have called Maya. 9th graders took the Do What You Are interest inventory, and the 11th graders took a different type of an interest inventory. These inventories help to connect students with careers that share their interests. It just opens them up to more options in the career field as they're going through high school. On the next page, our school climate committee had an open mic afternoon. So we had students and some staff members read poetry, sing songs, did some karaoke. We plan to hold another one in the spring. We had about 15 students and 4 staff members here, and it was really well received. We had it in our coffee shop. So we have our school high school social worker, Joelle Lebert, sang, and then some students got up there and did some other reading and karaoke and poetry. At the bottom there, we had Mrs. Feldman and Mrs. Lysick's class from Mullen came up and made some Christmas decorations with our yearbook class. They teamed up for a period, and the high schoolers helped the elementary students make Christmas decorations to bring home. On the next page, we did have our holiday concert in the beginning of December, and at the very end, the finale was a combination of all of our instrumental groups and all of our choral groups, and they did a little, I just took it. I don't know why it's not playing over this thing. So we had our chorale, our mixed chorus, our wind ensemble, our jazz ensemble, and our band all combined for one finale song. It was really cool. I mean, that doesn't do it justice. You had to be there to see all the groups together up on stage. Our FBLA went to Florida in the middle of November for a national conference, and they had a leadership workshop at Disney. They were going to be here tonight to talk about it, but they had some sporting event conflicts, so they're going to come in February, I think, to talk about their trip and what they learned. On the next page, we had at our December faculty meeting, two of our art teachers, Dan Lynch and Tina Edholm McNellis, they designed for their own art classes an escape room. So they got this idea from a conference, and they invited all of us in to watch them teach that particular lesson back in October, I think it was, and I think Dr. Newton was in there too for a period. And it was just really neat. They designed, and there's always escape rooms popping up everywhere, so they designed a whole lesson around an escape room, and all of the content had to do with art, colors and artists and putting things together. So they gave us the idea of doing that for a faculty meeting. So those two and myself designed a faculty meeting all around things we've been talking about at faculty meetings, instructional practices. We threw in some fun facts about staff, and we designed an escape room faculty meeting in December, and we tested it out on Mr. Sellen and Mr. Brown. So they weren't involved in planning. They did the test run. We had to tweak some stuff, and then we had a good time at our faculty meetings in December with the staff going through this. We had our annual Christmas for Kid event. I have some pictures there from the event. There's always so many high school kids that help out with the elementary students. That was wonderful. And I took a couple of videos today. Mr. Novitz had asked me to come into his robotics class. This is a new course we offer this year. It's half of a year robotics, half of architectural drawing. And he first showed me, I'll show you the first, he showed me this robot. The student just let it go, and it went through this maze all by itself. I'll tell you what's going to happen if it's going to load here. But it goes through the maze, and then it's automatically going to turn when it gets to that turn there on the left, and then it turns again and goes to its right all on its own. There's nobody controlling it or anything. They just let it, they just start it and it goes. And so I had asked a student in the class why it did that, what was happening.
Oh, that's a good one.
We did a couple practice runs, but that's what it's supposed to do. And then I asked the student what happened, and basically they have to do all this work in the computer and program it so many revolutions per how long it goes in a revolution and how long it takes, and they do all the computer programming, then they can transfer it over to the robot and they can get it to do that on its own. So that's just something they're working on in their new robotics class this year, so that was pretty cool. And last, here, our CFM class, Career Financial Management. They are holding mock job interviews in class here. And we had our Distinguished Alumni Dinner. It was the day after I presented last time, but up here we have our honorees. We have Paul Piotrowski and his wife on the top left there, Ned Leibrock and his wife in the middle, and Doc Worthling was the third one recognized, and we had about 5 tables of Worthlings. I just took one picture there of some of his grandkids. And then our band performed. We had the color guard perform at the Distinguished Alumni Dinner, so that was a nice event. So that's what's been happening in the high school the past 2 months. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Lyons.
You're welcome.
Ms. Sellen?
Okay.
I got that. I know you will. You'll let me know. All right, good evening, everyone. So I have some kind of dates on there, but then I have some other things that middle school students have been doing since the last couple months that we've met. The first page is the 6th grade students up in the STEM classroom. That was one of the classrooms we visited upstairs, and you can see they're doing tons of stuff up there. Participating in Take Apart Day, where they disassembled electronics and other household gadgets, and then those parts were then recycled. They worked with the art teacher and they set that up, and then they recycled those parts. Some of them are showing off the things they created with the 3D printer. The young lady in the top left-hand corner, that's something that she did create with the 3D printer. They build their VEX IQ robots. They investigate science and math through their Z-Space, and then program using their Chromebooks. So several pictures of these kids doing these sort of things up in the STEM classroom. Lots going on. Next page, I just had to add this in, and I don't have exact dates for everything or exactly where these students were volunteering, but these are just some of the photos that I received of not only some of our teachers, but our students volunteering throughout the entire holiday season. So whether they're working in a food pantry, they're helping decorate cookies, or they're in the lower right-hand side, they were actually cleaning out one of the parks there. I mean, these kids are 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and they're volunteering their time on their weekends and at night to help others, and I think it's just incredible. Our honor roll breakfast was November 29th. Once again, the PTSA provided breakfast for us. The National Junior Honor Society did a great job announcing all the names, and it was once again well attended, especially because it's 7 in the morning. But it was great. Our high school mentor luncheon was the November 29th and 30th. The middle school was on the 29th and the high school was on the 30th. We started this program a few years ago in which a teacher and administrators link with another student and acts as a mentor or a mentee for them. And I mean, for example, I have 2. One of my students, what we do is we like to check in with them on monthly, see how their grades are going, keep in contact with their teachers, see how they're doing. If there's any discipline issues, we can kind of step in. What they are is a person in the building that they can go to and build that relationship with, come with them with issues, and hopefully help them resolve them. One of my students, he has trouble getting to school on time, so his second period or first period teacher will email me, let me know that he's not there. He has given me his cell phone, and I do call him, and he does answer. And then lets me know he's either on his way or something else has happened. So we try and keep him motivated and keep him on track. Our parent-teacher conference was December 1st, well attended. The National Junior Honor Society ceremony was December 6th. We had 15 7th graders inducted and 10 8th graders inducted this year. It's a little bit different from last year. We used to have the ceremony at the end of the year. And so only those 8th graders for that year could get on and be part of the National Junior Honor Society. We decided to move it up the ceremony this year. So those students who were in 7th grade last year who didn't make National Junior Honor Society had another opportunity to reapply. And as you can see, 10 of those 8th graders did make their way onto the National Junior Honor Society. My Fair Ladies took a field trip to the Nutcracker on December 2nd. Once again, this is kind of a small group that works with Mrs. Frenning. They work on things like building self-esteem or confidence, but they kind of get all dressed up, they go to the Nutcracker, and then they all kind of go out to a nice little dinner together. Sometimes they, etiquette and things like that. Some of the kids, they were working on how much money they had, what they could, purchase to eat, and I think a couple kids went a little overboard, but that's okay. Christmas for Kids, as Ms. Lyons was mentioning, was December 17th, and yes, there is a plethora of high school kids that do volunteer, but all those photos that I have in here on this page and on the next page are middle school students who volunteered their time that day and linked themselves up with another young student for that day and kind of took them around playing games and getting cookies and things like that. So a lot of those kids are my National Junior Honor Society kids, and they spent their Saturday morning helping out. We too had the chorus and instrumental holiday concert. It was actually December 21st, 1 week later. We had some inclement weather and kind of pushed it another week, but it was still well attended. I'm still blown away as to the amazing job these kids do. Especially my daughters really like when the soloists come up and they sing, and it's just unbelievable. Next Picture Science Club creates and builds and flies kites. So one evening, one day after school, the science club got together and decided to build kites and go outside and fly them. Miscellaneous stuff. I just get pictures throughout the day from teachers and teaching assistants. On the left there, my friend who gave me the noogie, that's him and I walking down the hallway together. He grabbed my hand and he wanted me to walk with him down the hallway. The middle picture is Officer Valling and Detective Hankinson. Our kids called them in and they had a big celebration for them, thanking them for everything they do in the building. And on the far right, one of the students asked if he could dress like me for the day. I said, that's fine. I said, what do you want to wear tomorrow? And we decided on a lot of blue there. So we wore blue suits. He wanted to be the assistant principal for the day. I said, I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but you can help me out. But it was a fun day. Other stuff, and it's kind of things that happen that aren't necessarily connected to events that happen in the school. But these are things I think that the board should know, that the wonderful people that we have in the district and working within the district. There was a young man, family, that was removed from his home. Teachers heard about this and immediately jumped in and donated money for him. We had teachers that ran out that night because he was removed pretty quick. He didn't have any clothes, jackets, things like that. They went out to Target and they bought him clothes, they bought him jackets, and then had it all set for him for the next day. And I truly believe that this was a really tough time for him, and these teachers made it much easier for him to kind of go through that transition. The one student's trip for DC is being sponsored by administrators so that person can go to the DC trip. Students during the Christmas time, once again, going through some rough time, and we don't even ask for this, and teachers and administrators jump in and donate to help them out. We also had teachers and administrators from Roy Hart to our STEM labs to see the great things, as you saw on the first page, going on in there. And kind of to add, Ms. Lyons kind of reminded me of something. They are having the parent meeting on the 26th for the electives in the high school. The following day, we have the 8th graders. They go up to the library, and the tech teachers, our teachers, kind of give them a tour of what they could possibly take in the high school, kind of a little elective fair for them to give them a taste what they could possibly choose to do in the high school. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sokol.
We will now move on to consent agenda items. We have a motion to approve management service items 7.1 and 7.2. Moved by Mrs. Kasperzak, seconded by Ms. Sternen, that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the above management service items 7.1 and 7.2 as presented. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passes. Items 8.1 is a resignation. Item 8.2 is a probationary appointment. Item 8.3 is a tenure appointment. Item 8.4 is a long-term substitute appointment. Items 8.5 through 8.13 are spring coaches. Items 8.14 and 15 are club advisors, and items 8.16 and 17 are per diem substitutes. Item 8.3 should read middle school instead of Mullen, and we are moving 8.8.
What was the last thing you said?
We're removing 8.8. May I have a motion to approve instructional personnel items 8.1 through 8.7 and 8.9 through 8.17?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Sternen, seconded by Mr. Calabrese, that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the instruction personnel action items 8.1 through 8.7 and 8.9 through 8.17 as amended. No. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion
I'll get Mr. Sullivan introduce the teacher.
This is Kyle Middlefelt. He's our new low teacher. I give him a lot of kudos because he's come in halfway through the year and jumped right into it on Monday morning, and he was well prepared. So, Kyle,
Aye.
last name? So, give us a little background.
I'm honestly very excited to have this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working with the community and everything, and I'm looking to make this this my new home, definitely.
Thank you for coming.
Welcome.
Okay.
Can I ask why 8.8 was removed? Mr. Cook asked us to. Hopefully it'll be on next.
Yeah, we weren't sure if she was going to accept.
Yeah, okay. Item 9.1 is the superintendent's resignation. Item 9.2 is the creation of a civil service position, and items 9.3 through 9.6 are appointments. May I have a motion to approve non-instructional personnel items 9.1 through 9.6?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Don't second
Second.
Moved by Mr. Calabrese and seconded reluctantly by Mrs. Sternen, that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the non-instructional personnel action items 9.1 through 9.6 as presented. Are there any questions or comments? I think we're all set.
Yeah.
Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Motion passes. May I have a motion to approve Special Education Committee item 10.1?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Kessler, seconded by Ms. Sternen, that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the above item 10.1 as presented. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any nays or abstentions? Motion passes. There are no policy items. May I have a motion to approve items 12.1 and 12.2?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Kasperzak, seconded by Ms. Sternen, that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the above item 12.1 and 12.2 as presented. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion passes. Board members received a December attendance report, facility usage report, and December fitness center schedule, and January calendars from Mullen and Fletcher. The meeting is now open for any additional comments from the public.
Chip, and thank you again for coming to, and for getting to know Mr. Catlin. I had known Mr. Catlin for many years, and when I was a student, I used to, when I was in the hallways or going to my classes, sometimes Mr. Catlin always asked how I was doing and that sort of thing, and Mr. Smith always asked me too. He's another person that I used to know very well too for a very long time, and Mr. Catlin was very dedicated to what he did. And we must continue in his honor. The other thing is, one more thing too, the Boys and Girls Club is selling tickets for the Brittany Kerr thing coming up. I mentioned to you about this thing coming up. The benefits January 28th. There are tickets being sold at the Boys and Girls Club at Franklin Street. Sandy has some of those, so it's $15 per sale, for pre-sale for $15 and $20 at the door on the day of the benefit, which is January 28th at the Ambits, at the one in Riverview in the Buffalo. It's off of Tonawanda Street. So I just wanted to make sure. So if anyone wants to know more, get in touch with Sandy, 693-2307. Talk to her. She will let you know more information about the benefit for Brittany Kerr, whom we had lost a couple months ago.
Sandy Therese.
Yeah, Sandy Therese, yes. Because I wanted to make sure you knew about this, because sometimes you're involved in stuff with our board for years, so I just wanted to bring it up. One last thing, I just wanted to add. Amy, let's make sure we find out when the Special Olympics, because I know you said the date, but because I wanted to make sure that, because David and just would want to know, those school districts would need to know if it's confirmed for May 13th or May 14th.
Well, it won't be a Sunday, so.
It's important that we need to know when it is, so I can let my youth board know.
Yep.
And keep them up to date, so we can
I'll
clarify.
let you know by the next board meeting, Andy.
That's all I need, at least,
Okay.
that's all I had to bring it up, so we're bringing up, and regarding a Brittany Kerr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? If there are no further comments, we'll move on to board roundup, starting with Mr.
Ms. Turner.
You were last time, so you're first.
Well, that's nice. Just thank you, everybody, for the information on what's going on in the schools. It's always my favorite part. I love to hear what's going on in the schools. Ruby, thank you for your hard work on the budget. I know it just gets harder from here on out, but thank you. And since I'm losing my voice, I guess I'll move it on.
Mr. Starr. That was easy. Ms. Cook.
I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that Erie County will be sponsoring Narcan training. It's a free of charge class that's going to be held at the Senior Citizen Center on January 28th. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but the day before Christmas Eve and in October, we lost 2 young adults to overdoses. Good to hear that kids escaping drugs is brought back into the school. I think that's an excellent idea. These kids were in their young 20s, not so far removed from high school, which kind of brought me to, do we get any feedback from our resource officer about what they're seeing in the schools, and is there anything going on, or?
It's that committee that.
We talk about it a lot on the third Tuesday of the month, and I know you asked for a different day. We meet, and it's the Coalition, Tonawanda Coalition, and police officers sit on it. We have students on it, agencies, administrators, one of our counselors, one of our social workers, and it is talking about the drug epidemic and what we could do. And so the students have given a lot of insight as to other ideas of what we can be doing. The one officer, and I don't remember his name right now, talked about Narcan over the summer, and the different training sessions that were happening then as well. So that's been going on, I've been on 2 years, I think you were on it longer than that.
Our high school counselors were trained on that. All of them.
Yeah, they were
So
just trained on that, the high school counselors, last week.
In December, at their meeting, their last counselors meeting. So they had that.
Well, if anyone else is interested, you can register, you have to register for it, we can go through the City of Tonawanda website. But that is available and it is free of charge.
Do we have the drug available in the school?
They
They
give you
do.
a
They
drug
do
when
the
you finish
counselors, they've been
training.
trained.
When you finish the training, you get to,
Officer
they give you.
Oh, is it Mike Rogers?
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah. I couldn't think of his name.
Mr. Calabrese?
The only thing I have is probably piggyback on Andy a little bit, was with the passing of Mr. Catlin, I did go to the service and the wake. I served with Mr. Catlin on the board for 2 terms. He was very pro-kids, pro-students, both professionally and personally, and it is a great loss to the community.
Okay, I just want to thank the principals for the building reports. It's fun, and I love the pictures. Welcome to Kyle, and I'm not even going to attempt your last name, because it's just, yeah. Mr. Capola gave us a lot of information, and we've got a great job ahead of us, so we'll make a decision, get started on that very quickly. And again, I really hate to accept your resignation. Really hate to have to do that. Okay, that's it, that's all I have. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Sherman, seconded by Mrs. Kasperzak, the Board of Education. Adjourns the meeting at 7:43 p.m. All in favor? Any nays or abstentions?